huge earthquake hits the country. Several buildings collapse completely or partially. There are people trapped in some. We were deployed in help an SAR of trapped people. All from the start, the whole population was providing help and tried to rescue people trapped. Although this was seen very positive, it was actually harmful. Trying rescues without the proper knowledge, moving debris up and down, caused some buildings to collapse again or people trapped to be crushed. Second days of SAR operations, and we bring in heavy machinery, as there are tons of debris to be removed, and at some point, it will be used to clean the whole collapsed buildings until all chances of rescuing people have been exhausted. Usually, people distrust the government and think we will use the heavy machinery where people might be trapped and things escalate. Some people try to revolt, and some soldiers are even attacked. Despite trying to explain to them, they're just not fucking listening. We don't let them trespass as they can cause the buildings to collapse again and noise prevent SAR to help people that might still be alive. These people are fucking stupid. See an old lady in the rescued area near a building partially collapsed. She seems disoriented and confused, sad and worried at the same time. I think as someone whose family is still missing or trapped and get to her. I'm nice to her and tell her she can't be there. She can get hurt or worse. I think she managed to get in when people were arguing and revolting outside the restricted area. I'm walking her out when she starts to weep. The moment I touch her shoulder to try and comfort her, a sensation of sadness and sorrow took over me. A couple of tears fall from my eyes. I think the whole situation is very emotional. She didn't say anything. I walked her out of the area. Continued. I asked if there was someone that can take care of her. She just walks out of the crowd. Days later, the body of an old lady is found in the building. I saw the other lady days ago. She died trying to protect her toddler grandson, but both were crushed. Most of bodies were found similar to those. I see when the body is being taken out and clear of debris. It is the same old lady. Feel like shit for walking her out of the area. A short one, non-commando related. Be me, still live with parents. This isn't saved, but this is my own experience. Be me, Marine circa mid-2000s, stationed at Camp Pendleton, going out to 29 Palms, or the Stumps for a shoot soon. 29 Palms is fucking massive, middle of the Mojave Desert, almost 1,000 square miles. Most of the base is only accessible via unmarked/dirt roads. My roommate at the time is this Hispanic dude from rural New Mexico, extremely superstitious. Has like 20 different Catholic saint pictures around his side of the room. Starts acting worried this Friday before we drive out to the Stumps. Ask him what's wrong. Ghosts, man. What? That base is haunted, man. I roll my eyes internally and then say, I don't think ghosts are real. Don't fucking say that, man. Don't really know what to say to that. Go back to packing my shit. He starts talking. Guess it was weighing on him. He tells me a story. 1980s, 29 Palms. Unit from North Carolina is doing desert warfare training. Last day of the exercise. Trucking through a winding canyon. Remember, these are all unmarked dirt roads. Unit post guides so trucks don't take a wrong road. LCPL Rother is one of them. Last truck in the convoy is supposed to pick him up. Drives right past him. He waits. Nobody comes back for an entire day. Temps are in the 100s, limited water remaining. Rother knows that the old Route 66 is north of him, just outside the base limits. Makes an arrow out of rock showing which way he went. Starts walking. Fast forward another day. Been 2 days since anyone has seen Rother. Armory is counting weapons. One is missing. Rother is missing. Officer ass covering goes into overdrive. Marines start swarming the desert looking for him. Helos, thermal imagers, NVGs, you name it. Find his arrow and some of his gear. Find nothing else. Months go by. Skeletal remains found in the open desert clutching an M16. Hear this story and I say, So his ghost is still out there, man. I don't believe in ghosts myself. Yeah, sure. Okay. Later check out the story. It's basically all true. Nothing about ghosts though. Fast forward a week. We're in the middle of the training area, flat desert. Unit is down for the night. Nearest unit is 20 miles away. Know this because we are an artillery unit and part of my job is to make sure we don't actually shoot at anyone. On fire watch, 2 a.m. Alone because my partner is taking a shit. No moon. No NVGs either because I wasn't a driver at the time. Just my shitty angle flashlight that doesn't work half the time. Very quiet. No insect noise. Just the occasional breeze. Hear the crunch of sand in the distance. Must be my Firewatch buddy back from shitting. Shine my flashlight. See a Marine in desert BDUs walking directly towards me. My partner was wearing MARPAT. This is mid-2000s, so BDUs are almost completely replaced by MARPAT, but you still occasionally see Marines wearing them. First Sergeant has been a dick recently about proper sentry stuff, so I try to be on point just in case he brought an old pair of clammies to fuck with us. Halt, who goes there? Guy doesn't stop. Halt, who goes there? Guy still doesn't stop. I said Hulk, who goes there, motherfucker. Still approaching. At this point in wartime, a sentry is supposed to open fire, but this is in the middle of California in a training area. Have a rifle, but no ammo. Only usable weapon is a folding Gerber pocket knife. Don't know what to do. Advance and be recognized. Guy walks right up to me. His BDUs are faded as fuck. Can't believe he wouldn't get chewed out for that. Also, big tears in his legs and arms. Wishing I hadn't told him to advance. Want to back away, but can't seem to make my legs move. Right then, my flashlight goes out. He's standing maybe a foot away from me, but it's a moonless night. Can barely see his face. He starts to speak. His voice is weak and gravelly, like he can barely speak. Which way is north? Don't know what to do, so I pull out my compass. It's dark, but luckily the north arrow is glow in the dark. Point my arm into the general direction. Thanks. He walks off towards the open desert. A few minutes later, my buddy comes back from his shit. Ask him if he heard anyone walking around. No. Ask him if he saw the guy walk right through the center of our bivouac. No. Don't say anything about what just happened. Stand watch for another 15 minutes and the next set of guys relieve us. Don't really sleep. Nothing else happens the rest of the exercise. Luckily, I don't pull any more Firewatch. My roommate tries to bring up ghost stories again when we go back to Pendleton. Tell him I'd only been overseas on business for 2 weeks. When I got back, someone was in my home, painted to look like our cat, and my family couldn't tell the difference. Written by Unalloyed Saint Trina. Hey, get off my son, I barked, storming towards our couch, suitcase falling from my grasp somewhere along the way. Julie planted a firm hand on my chest as I tried to pass her, asking what my problem was. She insisted that I must be exhausted from the flight, that I wasn't thinking straight, but I could feel the subtext. The insinuation was as plain as day. She thought I was ass over tits drunk, or worse, right in front of our son. Something I'd promised never to be guilty of again. Heats gathered under my shirt collar. A flush crept up my face. I was sober. Stone cold sober. Dry as a goddamn ditch. I mean, she was the one who'd allowed that freak into our home. She was the one who was letting them lounge on our kid's lap like nothing was wrong. How did I know she wasn't on something? Wordlessly, I ripped Julie's hand away and rushed past her. Dad, what's the matter? It's just Raja, Dad. Tears began flooding. It hurt to make Ike upset, yes, but that hurt was nothing compared to the fear I felt. The raw, blistering confusion of it all. It was the gentle sparks of a firecracker versus the roiling fireball of a ballistic missile. No contest. I loomed over the brown leather sectional. Ike slid out from under them and scampered over the top of the couch, sprinting into his mother's trembling arms as soon as his feet hit the floor. The person dressed to look like our house cat didn't even react. Knees to their chest, curled and comfortable, they placed a painted 5-fingered hand up to their mouth and rubbed their palm against their mask. I suppose they were simulating self-cleaning, but the mask didn't have a hole for a tongue to come out of, so their skin just squeaked against the material. My eyelids twitched. Icy sweat drenched my back. I looked for my wife for answers, but she just seemed terrified. Terrified of me. What is this? I whispered, knuckles collapsing into a fist. Ike whimpered. My wife raked his beach blonde hair, silent, wide-eyed. Who is this, Julie? The dry, crackling scream sent her dashing to the kitchen table, where her phone was resting. Ike transitioned into full-on hysteria, and very much like a cat, the intruder appeared perfectly indifferent to our mounting duress. They stopped licking their palm and stretched wide, shifting their stomach towards me, unafraid, unbothered, unprotected. I stared at them, disbelief running dizzy laps around the base of my skull. They were around 5 feet tall, mask included, which was circular, stout, flattened at the top, triple the size of a human skull, and circumferentially smooth. The shape reminded me of the box I used to store my extra drum cymbals. Our calico's likeness had been meticulously painted across the mask. Her emerald green eyes, the black spots surrounding her light pink nose, the ragged edges of her left ear, it was all there and accounted for. To fit the mask's bizarre dimensions, however, those familiar features needed to be distorted. Everything was a little too wide and a little too big. It was the same with their gaunt, emaciated body. They'd faithfully translated the markings of her fur onto their skin, stretching the pattern to fit over their ghoulish proportions. A patch of white over their sunken, craterous abdomen, speckles of soft orange along their forearms, extremities which had cords of tendon revolting visible because of the way their thin skin wrapped tightly around their fatless frame. Worst of all, they were naked. No genitals, though. The crease was sleek and seamless like a Ken doll. My rage boiled over. I descended, ready to cave their chest in with my bare hands. Marvin, Jesus Christ, it's just a cat. Get a hold of yourself, Julie blared. My fist halted inches from their breastbone. They didn't flinch. I creaked upright so I could see my wife's eyes. You think they're a cat? You think this is Raja? Ike was beyond hysterics at that point, shrieking, inconsolable, face pressed hard into her pant leg. Julie didn't answer. She pulled away into another room, urgently muttering to the 911 dispatcher. Yes, he's on something, or drunk, or sick. I don't know. Just get someone over here. My mouth felt dry. I ran a quivering hand through my sweat-caked hair, slicking it back. Wanted to look somewhat presentable when the police arrived. All the while, they loafed on the couch. Sleeping, smiling, laughing, watching, waiting? I couldn't tell. The mask had no holes, and they never spoke. I stood in front of the couch, lightly swaying, or empty swing shivering in a cold wind, observing patches of painted skin sinking between their brittle ribs as they exhaled. How can they breathe, I wondered, given that the plastic edges of the mask seemed to be continuous with their neck. I was no closer to an answer to that question when the police arrived a few minutes later. I implored them to arrest the intruder, begging them to see a reason, praying their view matched my own. They looked at the thing on my couch and snickered, eyes gleaming with amusement. I shouldn't have expected them to take the request seriously. How could I? It was just a cat, after all. The police graciously escorted me to the emergency room. Not in cuffs, thankfully, not that time. All the tests were unremarkable. The clear fluid they drew from my spine didn't show any signs of an infection agitating my nervous system. The urine drug screen came back positive, but only for opioids, and the doctor expected that, given I was on a few pills. The med helped dull any residual cravings for my old vices, alcohol and booger sugar, but shared a chemical similarity to pills. My kidneys, my heart, my liver, every organ seemed to be in working order. Far as the doctor could tell, there wasn't anything wrong with me, and I hadn't ingested anything they believed could inspire psychosis. But when the psychiatrist asked, I remained incessant. That thing wasn't a cat. From there, my trajectory was set. Next stop, Fallen Leaves Behavioral Health Hospital. The first time wasn't too bad. My fellow captives were tolerable, and the docs were nice enough. Smart, too. They eventually had me believing I was suffering under an isolated delusion precipitated by extreme stress. Their words, not mine. Initially, I rejected the theory. The more I considered it, though, the more it seemed to click into place. Undeniably, work had been taxing, and no one else had saw Raja as I did. Occam's razor suggested something was wrong with me rather than everyone else. Not Ike, not Julie, and not the police. Just me. 5 days later, I was discharged. Ike was ecstatic, jumping up and down in the back seat of our sedan, wrapping a pair of little hands around my shoulders as I clicked the passenger seat safety belt into the holster. Julie was more reticent about my release, but she did a good job faking happiness for Ike's sake. I was the last to enter when we got home. My feet felt thickly calcified to our stone stoop. It took Julie holding my hand to get me inside, practically yanking me over the threshold. The door swung shut behind me. Electricity sizzled up the curves of my neck as I scanned my surroundings. Julie ran her thumb delicately across my palm. The massage was tender and affectionate, but I sensed a similar electricity hissing along her skin. She was nervous too, and in retrospect, she had every right to be. I saw no masked intruder. My static calmed. I turned to Julie and shot her a flimsy smile. Then there was a noise above us. A quiet, inscrutable message. A painful reminder. Knock, knock, knock. My body became a live wire. Julie's thumb dug vicious stigmata into my palm, having sensed my panic. I glanced up, and there they were, lying prone on the balcony that overlooked our foyer, all but their mask wreathed in deep shadow, knocking the poor, oversized facsimile of Raja's skull against the banister's small wooden pillars, alternating left to right, right to left, left to right. Knock, knock, knock. The lead psychiatrist at Fallen Leaves informed me I went absolutely ballistic at the mere sight of our innocent house cat, and that my stay the second time around would be longer. Much longer. I don't recall going ballistic, though. I have no memory of what transpired between seeing them again and the point at which I arrived at the psychiatric hospital. All I remember is their terrible, pendulous sway, extending on into infinity. A video on a frozen computer screen, constantly refreshing but never righting itself, never moving on, perpetually misaligned and distorted. A part of me never left that moment. A part of me is still there, watching, helplessly. Knock, knock, knock. Julie still visited me over the following 3 months, but only weekly, and she wasn't bringing Ike with her. Not only that, but judging by the way her cheekbones had begun progressively sharpening, she wasn't eating. The stress of it all was getting to her, and that fact killed me. At first I pleaded, said things like, I'm not insane. I know what I saw, and for the love of God, Julie, you and Ike aren't safe." All she did in response was avert her eyes. My pleas were falling on deaf ears, and the only thing those outbursts were earning me was a longer sentence at Falling Leaves Behavioral Health Hospital. It was a tough pill to swallow, but I realized that feigning recovery from my delusion was the most logical step forward. So that's what I did. Slowly but surely, I recovered, even endorsed during a group therapy session that I've been covertly indulging in some designer pill-like drugs. Drugs that wouldn't come up on a routine test, but certainly could send a mind through the proverbial garbage disposal. The psychiatrist seemed to buy it. Hook, line, and sinker. 108 grueling days later, my wife brought me home. Her lips twitched as she drove. Her eyes were glassy and bloodshot. She'd lost a significant amount of weight. 20 pounds, maybe more. They were right inside the door when I opened it. Preening on their back beside our welcome mat, body contorted into a lazy stretch, soundly beseeching a stomach scratch. I watched her anxiety flourish into outright panic, knees fluttering, breathing sharp and shallow. Her eyes flashed to me, then to what she saw as our defenseless cat, and back again, petrified about what I might do. Before she could pull her phone from her bag, I was bending down, rubbing my fingers against their belly. Its skin was doughy but disturbingly coarse, like partially congealed flour with grains of asphalt mixed into the batter. As I suppressed a gag, I felt the silky touch of Julie's hand on my shoulder. "So good to have you back, Marvin," she whispered. I nodded, still rubbing. The dead eyes of their painted mask pointed at me. Julie walked away. As soon as she was out of earshot, I stood up and retracted my hand, which was now coated in a fine, gray, odorless dust. Something was different about them. Their abdomen seemed fuller than before. The solution to this mess, as I imagined, appeared relatively straightforward. I didn't need to understand them. I didn't need to know what they were, why only I could appreciate their true form, and what their purpose in my home was. I just needed to kill them. Thus, I needed my family incapacitated, unable to intervene. So I dosed them. 1 pill for Ike, 4 pills for Julie. For the record, the pills were never my vice. I mean, who wants to sleep through their high? Never made much sense to me. Still, I had to use them outside of hedonism as a sort of biochemical kill switch. Having the shakes from alcohol withdrawal, take a pill. Booger sugar gets you a little too revved up, take another pill. Thankfully, I was able to locate a dusty pill bottle stashed under a floorboard in the attic, a relic from my days as a fiend. It wasn't as dramatic as something like chloroform. They both just became incredibly drowsy after downing some spiked lemonade. Neither very interested in having leftovers prior to turning in for the evening. I helped them up the stairs, and that was that. Both were out like a light in no time. Ike told me he loved me. Julie reminded me to feed Raja 3 times. She might have had her suspicions in the morning, and I figured she'd be distraught to find Raja missing, but I'd cross that bridge when I came to it. As I drew Ike's bedroom door closed, there they were, lying on their belly in the hallway, absent-mindedly flickering water around their bowl with their seemingly nailless human fingers. That moment was the first pleasurable one I'd experienced since the whole damn ordeal began. They were making it easy for me. I tiptoed across the carpet, gaze ripe with beautiful violence, and when I was close enough, I knelt down and straddled the intruder. They writhed, attempting to get out from under me, it was no use. Only then did I experience a brief, smoldering curiosity about what was hidden underneath. I clasped my hands at that point where its mask and neck became indistinguishable and began wrenching it upwards. A deluge of endorphins set my blood on fire. My entire body radiated blissful warmth. This fever dream was finally going to be over. When the mask started to give, as threads of anchoring sinew started to snap, that's when I heard their howls. Both Julie and Ike wailing in discordant unity. Paternal instinct got me upright. Before my conscious mind could even register the circumstances, I was kneeling beside my son. He was sitting straight up, shoulders tensed to hell and back, eyes rolled into his skull, and God, there was blood. Tiny crimson dewdrops formed a ring around his neck, exactly where I'd been tearing at the mask. His screams grew fainter. After a few seconds, he fell back limply onto his pillow, almost as if he'd passed out from within a dream. Only then did the wails completely die. Then the house was utterly silent. Julie had stopped too. Whatever I did to them, it seemed to translate to my family. They were connected. Tethered. I turned around, nearly toppling back onto Ike from the shock of what I saw. They were there, in the doorway, standing on 2 feet. Raja's stretched, vacant face stared daggers into me. Gradually, it got back on all fours, pawed past me, climbed onto Ike's bed, and curled up at his feet. And I just stood there, paralyzed. The message was obvious. They didn't need a voice for me to understand. Checkmate. The next morning, as I stewed among a mug of lukewarm coffee at the kitchen table, Julie approached me holding her pillowcase. "Hey, glad to see you up so early." I nodded, keeping my eyes fixed on the black liquid. "What do you make of these stains? Smells a hell of a lot like blood, and it wasn't there before I went to bed. I thought I saw some dried blood on my neck, but I looked myself up and down in the mirror and it doesn't seem like I have a scratch on me. I don't know, it's just weird." She dropped the pillowcase onto the table and returned to her morning routine. A blotchy, maroon-colored oval marred the light blue fabric, no bigger than a quarter. Flecks of coagulation dislodged as I scraped my thumbnail over the stain. But as I put it to my nose and sniffed, I didn't detect even a hint of that sickly sweet, iron-kissed scent. Yup. Smells like blood to me. Strange, I replied, draping the pillowcase over the top of a nearby chair. Right? She paced out into the foyer and began calling for Ike. After years of snorting booger sugar, my sense of smell was effectively non-existent. Rarely I'd get a faint whiff of something, but it would have to be exceptionally fragrant to wake up my fried nerves, and it was always fleeting. Julie didn't know that, though. I was used to lying about it. Too embarrassed to reveal the lengths to which I'd ravaged my body at the altar of feeling good. My eyes darted to the pantry. There was a muffled tapping coming from the inside. The clack of my wife's heels echoed as she moved to the open door. The intruder spilled out, mask thudding against the floor, cans of beans and boxes of spaghetti toppling over like bowling pins. "Raja, you goof, there you are," Julie cooed. They got on all fours and began shaking violently, airing out their hypothetical fur, causing a cloud of pale dust to collect around them. Once settled, they tilted their mask up to look at my wife. She stared back at them, silent, grinning. After a moment, she turned to me and said, "Wow, he is vocal today. Good Lord." At no point did I hear anything from them. Julie paced around the kitchen, chuckling to herself. I glared at the intruder. They had everyone else fooled, and I couldn't seem to pinpoint what made me so damn special. Suddenly, I had an idea. What if something in my blood was allowing me to see through the illusion? Could I be genetically immune? I pulled my phone from my pocket, walked up to them, and snapped a quick picture. Then I texted my brother. Free for tonight? Ike would love to see his uncle. Dan and I weren't estranged, but we weren't on great terms either. He lived about an hour away and had his own shit to deal with. More than that, though, I'd said some things better left unsaid while still in the throes of substance abuse. He'd kept me at arm's length ever since. I towered over the indecipherable devil, the haunting melody of my spellbound wife and son laughing upstairs, thumping against my eardrums. My hand buzzed. Sure. Good to hear from you. Car's out of commission. Mind picking me up? Happy to, I replied. Then, with no context, I forwarded him the picture I'd just taken and waited. The dots of a pending reply appeared across my phone screen. My heart racketed against my ribcage. My life teetered on what he saw. Ew, what the fuck is that, Marv? Relief washed over me. Tell you more later. Be there at 5. I peered down at them and smiled wide, baring my teeth. Most of the trip home from Dan's was silent. I was too nervous to hold a conversation, maniacally tapping on the steering wheel, thoughts spinning. As we were pulling off the interstate, he broke that silence, but not in the way I was expecting. Hey, you haven't, taken anything, right? Still on the wagon, so to speak, he asked. Automatically, I responded. What? No, God, I wish. Each small word came out swift and punctuated. Even with just my peripheral vision, I could tell he was giving me that look. A pitying condescension that always felt like a splash of acid gnawing at my skin. The type of look that used to reliably throw me into a rage at a moment's notice. I swallowed and rolled my shoulders, focused my attention on the heat from the setting sun cascading through the windshield, rather than the resentment bubbling in my veins. Things at home have been better, I sighed. Talk about an understatement. But what else could I say? Where would I even start? I lost my job. I was in a psychiatric hospital for months. There's a demon dressed as my house cat, and only I can tell. No, he'd think I'd gone off the deep end. Once he saw for himself, then I'd be able to spill my guts. Once he understood, then we could strategize. I'm sure it's not as bad as you. He paused, sniffing the air. A bout of harsh, vigorous coughing took a hold of him. His eyes became glassy and red. I considered pulling over by our town's welcome sign, but he waved for me to keep going as I flicked my turn signal on. Sorry, he sputtered. Allergies really have been a bitch this year. The fit abruptly dissipated. When I looked over, he didn't seem concerned, and his breathing was steady, so I just kept going. A minute later, we pulled into my driveway. Hours passed before dinner was ready. We chatted, gave Dan copious updates about Ike, and even had time to play a few games of backgammon while the roast cooked. He continued to cough, but the fits were smaller, more contained. Honestly, he didn't even seem to notice them. All the while, Raja never showed their face. Dread crawled over my skin like termites through wood, but I kept my cool. They'd come. Around 8, the four of us sat down to eat. Lines of steam rose above the glistening pile of meat at the center of the table. Ike, wanting to come off as a proper gentleman, insisted on serving us, dropping asymmetric portions of beef, mashed potatoes, and baked asparagus across each of our plates. All right, dig in, Julie announced. My son descended ravenously. Still on edge, I gingerly mixed the gravy into the potatoes. Eyes darted between each of the 3 entrances to our kitchen. That's when I noticed something peculiar about Julie. She was holding her utensils upright, a fork in one hand, a knife in the other. But she wasn't moving. Eyes locked on me but glazed over. Honey, everything okay? The only part of her that budged was her lips. Why wouldn't I be? Stomach twisting into agonizing knots, I turned to Dan. He was swiping at the meal, but every time his fork missed. A little too high, a little too far left, over and over and over again. Julie, this roast is something else, he muttered. Abruptly, my wife released her grip, utensils clattering against the plate. Wow, I am stuffed, she proclaimed. Julie sprang from her chair. Might as well give Raja the leftovers. She balled her hand into a fist, brought it close to her face, and began knocking on her forehead. The resulting sound had an unnaturally pervasive resonance like hot water running through a loose copper pipe, metal expanding and colliding against an adjacent wall. Knock, knock, knock. A series of wild thuds emanated from the foyer, a bevy of hands and feet and knees crashing down the stairs. The frenzied stampede of a starving animal as the masked intruder charged into the room. Julie walked over to his dinner bowl and dumped her entire meal into it, pieces haphazardly ricocheting onto the side of a cabinet and the surrounding floor. Suddenly, I realized I hadn't seen her eat anything substantial since I left for that trip months prior. A few slices of toast with her coffee in the morning, but nothing more. Dan pivoted to face them as they entered. I held my breath. He swung to me. His eyes were rolled back into his skull. White bowls of tapioca adorned with a lattice work of bright capillaries. Tiny red worms wading through a thick ooze. I was wondering when the little guy would show up. I've missed him. My heart buckled. My mind fractured. Identically, my brother sprung to his feet, grabbed his plate, and dumped it in front of them. Might as well give Raja the leftovers. Pets have to be fed, and we don't want Ike to be the one to feed them, right? No, of course not. We want the best for our prodigy. We want them to grow. We want them to thrive, right? Right? The intruder hastily gathered the tribute in their arms, gravy smearing an impromptu test along their trunk, and began galloping past the table. At some point, Ike had gotten up and was standing by the screen door, creaking it open so they could careen into the backyard without losing an ounce of momentum. For months, this must have been the routine. Looking at Ike, I found myself at a crossroads. I could just give up, allow my family to be eaten away from the inside out until there was nothing left, until they'd been made hollow. Hell, it wouldn't be hard, and who knows? Weak and empty, they might not even have the brain power to notice if indulged in a vice or two on their side. A family that would stick around no matter what I did to myself. I wanted that at some point, right? Or I could give chase to that incomprehensible thing. That fucking parasite. Even if it felt hopeless, completely and utterly insurmountable, I could still try. Blood thrumming, heat burning, I shot up and followed them into the moonless night. It's currently 11 p.m. When I finally arrived home, Ike and Julie were sleeping soundly, and Dan was gone. But I don't know where he got to since I drove him. There are holes in the forest, burrows, tunnels. I watched the intruder dive into one, still holding the food. When I put my ear to the hole, I heard something. Mewing. Multiple identical, high-pitched yowls overlaid with each other. Sounded exactly like Raja when we forgot to fill his bowl. Hungry begging but an eerie triplicate. I never considered what happened to the real him until that moment. If that truly is our original house cat, lurking deep in the hole, that's not all though. On the way back, I passed by Mr. Hooper. He lives 2 doors down from us. He was walking what he believed was his husky. The man looked like he dropped 30 pounds since I last saw him. And it's not just happening to my family. I think the whole town is infested. I'm not sure what to do next. Search for Dan, return to the hole. It's unclear, but I'll figure it out. I'm publishing this in case something happens to me. Julie, if you're reading this, I'm not crazy. My 26 female best friend, who's 23 female, might be in love with my husband, who's 26 male. Where do I go from here? And trust me, this one gets wild. Let's get into it. Throwaway because my husband stalks Reddit. Also, I know he isn't cheating on me. He's at home more often than not, and I have full access to his electronics, as does he to mine. Note, some identifying details have been changed to protect my privacy, such as names. My husband and I have been together since we were young teenagers. We got married last year and have a 6-month-old daughter together. She is the light of both our lives, as we both came from broken homes and want a better life than we lived growing up. My best friend came a few years later. We used to live in the same neighborhood and casually began to hang out. She lives with both her parents and siblings as she is studying to get her bachelor's degree. At first, she didn't like my husband, said that he was clingy and tried to insert himself into our friendship. WTF? She was civil to him because he was my romantic partner. For context, my husband is bipolar type 2, autism, and PTSD, and it causes him to be a little socially awkward and miss certain social cues and taboos. I love him regardless of it all. Over the past few years, we have been hanging out a lot more. She comes over for a few drinks, we go to the movies, and even visit local attractions together. We all three have a good time. And my husband does try to make nights for just the two of us often too. However, last year, my husband and I found out we were expecting a child together in January. I was working and fell ill because at the time, I was working at a fast food place. I threw up and went to the doctor. Come to find out, I was 8.5 weeks pregnant. My life changed, and I had become more busy to get myself ready for motherhood. My best friend saw me less and less, and we couldn't talk as much. My husband and I got married almost a month and a half after discovering we were going to become parents. That's when our dynamic changed. Recently, I applied to school and am currently in college trying to get a law degree so I can become a paralegal and get to law school. I'm also a stay-at-home mom while doing college too. I've been super busy. One day, my husband gets a text, and it's from my best friend. She asks if they can talk, as she was upset. He took the phone call with me protesting, and a few minutes later said, "Sandra, we need to go get Carla. Her father is picking a fight with her." I get upset as we were watching a movie together, and I had just gotten the baby down for bed. We go to her house, which is about 20 minutes away, and she stays with us for a night. As I get our daughter back down to bed, Carla asked to cuddle with the two of us in our bed. I was hesitant. I have issues with claustrophobia due to a traumatic experience as a child. My husband gave the go-ahead. We settle in for the night. Carla's dad apologized and she heads back home. Once she was gone, I blew up at my husband. What he did was not only inappropriate, but was disrespectful to my boundaries. Ever since, when she has an issue with her dad, she calls my husband and vents. One day, while my in-laws were staying with us, my mother-in-law overheard a conversation with my hubby and Carla. She was concerned and asked me if I was okay with it. I said, no, not really. But every time I bring it up, he gets defensive, saying that she needs help, that she is going through a hard time, blah, 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 blah. It is important to note that my mother-in-law was cheated on in the past by her ex, my husband's father. We are also extremely close, and she sees me as a daughter. She hates cheaters with a passion, and my husband, who I will refer to as James, was using the same excuses his father did. She asked to speak to him privately and walked to our living room. They got into a heated match, and James apologized to me. He said he didn't know that I was hurting me and causing issues in our marriage. I asked him, how would you feel if I had asked him if another man could sleep in the bed with us? He kind of deflated and tried to say, it's different, blah, 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 blah. His stepfather, Mark, fake name, spoke up and said, it is the same. You're uncomfortable with it, so is she. Quit with the excuses. James respects Mark quite a lot, actually. Mark raised him since he was 8, and his own father was in and out of the picture. Once the dust settles, my husband truly apologized to me for his actions and said that he would do better. I kissed him, and that was that. However, I wouldn't be right here if that was the end of the issues. Lately, Carla has been calling him 3 to 8 times a day. She says it's because she is bored and has no one else to talk to. I snap. I call him out over the nonchalance about the situation, how when she calls, he answers, how it is making me feel like a third wheel in our marriage, etc. His response? She's just lonely. You're letting it get to you. That night, I slept in the living room. I'm starting to suspect that she is trying to monopolize his time. She calls him for over an hour each time he calls. They talk, she complains about her life, etc. Almost like she is his girlfriend or something. I am starting to find this relationship troubling. It's getting to the point that it is affecting my marriage. Where do I go from here? Any advice would be appreciated. Edit. Thanks everyone for the feedback. I'm going to have a talk with him, with his mom involved. He won't listen to me if I don't. I'm tired of fighting him over this. I should have an update with a resolution in a couple of days. I'm going to read everyone's responses more thoroughly. Thanks for the advice. Edit number 2. My husband and I had a sit-down talk. His mother and stepfather weren't available. He promised me that he would explain everything in detail. I called Carla, and she said that we could talk Friday when she wasn't busy with school. She had something she needed to air out. I will have an update on Friday, hopefully. Edit number 3. I woke up to a text from Carla this morning. She actually wants to talk to me tonight, alone. As her schedule has changed, we are going to have a heart-to-heart. Hopefully, I will have some news. Edit number 4. I need some time. I will post an update later on. My heart is hurting. Husband and I are getting a divorce. Thank you for understanding. And then the OP adds some additional comments in the comment section and says, I quit my job after I found out I was pregnant. I became a stay-at-home mom. Believe it or not, people can have inheritance and have no bearing on job status. My soon-to-be ex-husband is a construction worker who makes good money. I only worked for my own satisfaction at being able to pay for stuff. His uncle was a financially sound man who had no children. That's why my ex got the house. We were looking at getting our own house soon before he died. And then let's get into some other comments. Someone says, you've set your boundaries and he continues to cross them. Is this how you want your marriage to be? She won't stop as long as your husband responds to her every time. And the OP responds and says, you're right. I have issues standing up for myself. Another user says, does he not understand how badly that reflects on him? That he is unwilling to explain his actions to his own wife, seeing the pain and distress you are in regarding the situation? Or does he simply not care because he has feelings for her? In my opinion, if there was no cheating involved, he could have reassured you about that, but explained what was going on with Carla was a personal matter that she needs to share with you herself. And the OP responds and says, sometimes he thinks I'm too emotional. I have PTSD and BPD, and he doesn't understand my disorder. He doesn't understand that I feel things intensely or passionately, or that it is super easy to hurt my feelings. He never even tries to understand me, autism or not. Honestly, I'm considering cutting my losses and going through divorce anyway. It's not worth the emotional anguish he put me through each and every day. And then we get another update 2 days later, which reads as follows. This update is hard. Everything about this situation sucks, and I don't know if I'll be okay for some time. Baby and I are currently staying with my friend, Tanya. To start, James and I are getting a divorce. Carla is no longer a friend to me or our mutuals. The betrayal is too deep for her to be friends with our group. As most of you assumed, James and Carla are indeed having an affair. It started about 3 months ago and just turned physical 1 month ago. They were planning on just up and leaving after James served me divorce papers. They used that ruse that he was helping her through emotional issues to hide the fact. I was crushed. She wanted to clear the air before it got worse. That was when she dropped a huge bombshell. James was going to try and get me to terminate my rights to my child in order for Carla to adopt her. The reason? My borderline diagnosis a few years ago made me unfit to be a mother, and he was sure that the courts would agree. She then handed me 2 separate stacks of paperwork and left. I am contacting a lawyer as I'm writing this. I was seriously hurt. You guys were right. Carla was a snake and only told me this so she wouldn't feel guilty. However, I'm not letting my soon-to-be ex-husband bully me into termination of my rights. I called him afterwards and got very heated about what was going on. James just sat there in silence. I was crying afterwards. I pleaded with him to tell me what I did wrong. For a little bit of backstory, I had a near fatal complication with my delivery of our daughter, where I bled my entire labor. I had to have 2 blood transfusions and haven't fully recovered from it. I was not cleared for any extraneous activity for 3 months, including intimacy. James was getting unsatisfied with all of my doctor's appointments and not getting the intimacy that he wanted. I was hurting and ended up needing another procedure to remove some placenta that didn't naturally come out. I had to have my tubes tied because if I had another child, it'll kill me next time. James wanted at least 2 more kids, and this put an end to his plans. I married a monster. We were together since we were 15, and this is how he repays me? I thought I knew him. He was acting so caring and nice to me. I am absolutely heartbroken. I'm not even sure if I'm going to update this anymore. But if I do, it'll be after the divorce settles. Thank you all for your concern. I'm going to take a step back and take some time to adjust. There is no chance for a healthy co-parenting situation. I'm fighting for primary custody with supervised visits. Carla will not have access to my baby, as I will ask the judge to make a clause preventing her from interacting with my daughter. Thanks for all the advice. Edit. I forgot to add that I contacted his mother and Mark this morning. They are furious that James is doing this to me. They are helping me foot the cost of a lawyer because I'm a stay-at-home mom and college student. They have kicked James out, and he is staying at our old house with Carla. He did give me the courtesy to get my stuff and didn't put up a fuss about me taking what I wanted. He told me that he will keep in contact for divorce proceedings. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, "Why did you leave? He's the asshole. He's the one that gets to leave." And the OP responds and says, "It's his house. Inheritance. He only let me stay as a courtesy. His parents didn't know the full story, but now that they do, he overstayed his welcome. They are so angry. I'm not sure if his relationship with his mom or stepdad are salvageable." And someone else says, "What stands out is he's threatening to use her bipolar status against her, despite being a parent with bipolar type 2, autism, and PTSD. LMAO, dude is evil and inept." And the OP replies and says, "I didn't say he was smart, did I? But with me having no financial way to support my child or a stable home, he has slightly better odds. I'm still in contact with his mom and stepfather. I'm hoping they will give me a place at their house for the time being. I feel like I am being intrusive at Tanya's home." And then we get an update about a month later, and let's get into it. Update number 2. Sorry I've been radio silent. I spoke to a lawyer who is helping me at a reduced rate. My in-laws are helping me foot the cost of a lawyer against their wayward son. With all the info that I have, including some threatening texts from Carla and James, I have decided to file for a protection order. They were stupid enough to send me a text that pretty much confirmed the blackmail. I intend to use this to my advantage in the upcoming divorce proceedings as evidence of emotional abuse. John has continued to maintain that I need to terminate my rights to our daughter so that he can run away with Carla, but I shut that down. My girl is the light of my life and my only chance to be a mom, which is something I have always wanted to do. I finally got a clean bill of health from my doctor after months of dealing with postnatal complications, and needless to say, no more babies for me. I could die if I get pregnant again. I go to court Friday for our divorce proceedings. We have a mediator that my lawyer is speaking to directly for me, so I don't have to deal with James's bully tactics. My lawyer is a no-nonsense kind of man, and I like that about him. My in-laws have decided to cut ties with James after this. He openly disrespected them for giving me a place to stay after I was kicked from the house and the threats. The emotional anguish he has been putting me through has been too much. They've always saw me as their own daughter and has treated me as such. They are just as angry at James for his involvement in all of this as I am. That's why they decided to foot the cost of a lawyer since I was a stay-at-home mom. My therapist has upped my therapy sessions to 3 times a week. I was also formally diagnosed with DID recently, which only came out when I blacked out in a therapy session. My therapist and psychiatrist have been communicating and have suspected for a while that I have it, but got confirmed after my recent development in therapy. I haven't told James this, and never intend to. My mother-in-law does know and has been my rock through all of this. As for the commenters on RA that say that I moved on too quickly out of the house for it to seem real, I have one thing to say. I have very little and had to go back and grab the baby stuff. My soon-to-be ex-husband and Carla have went on a weekend getaway to my dream location, which I knew they did to me to hurt me even more. The pictures were sent to me by my current friend who gave me a place to stay for a few days while my in-laws gave me a place in their home. Baby girl is adjusting to life without her daddy around all the time. She is super fussy most of the time, and I am sure she misses having him around. It breaks my heart to pieces. That's all that I have for you right now. I will have another update on Friday. And one of the top comments says, it's disgusting how determined they are to hurt you. At this point, it feels like it's something they bond over, which makes me think that once you get over all this and they realize they won't be able to hurt you anymore, their relationship will wither away. Anyways, sending love and courage your way. And someone else says, whatever you plan to use against your husband in court, don't post all your plans here in the event your POS husband and mistress finds this post. Have you considered suing Carla for alienation? And then we get another update a week later titled Update Number 4, Court Went Better Than Expected. I have some great news. Baby girl is safe with me. My lawyer pulled through for me, and my ex wants this divorce to be over with as soon as possible. First of all, I got full custody of my daughter with supervised visitation from ex. His own words came back to haunt him. I had proof of all of his threats and the blackmail of him trying to get me to sign away my rights, and the judge wasn't happy. He torn to James and Carla about their behavior and how they tried to blackmail me, and how they were lucky that I didn't press charges for extortion. Because of their bad behavior, he told them that he couldn't, in conscience, do shared custody because of the evidence of their behavior towards me. He was also worried that they would try to run off with her. Next up, because of all the behavior and aggression towards me that was unwarranted, my protection order was granted. My mother-in-law, who stayed beside me in court, is the one who volunteered to facilitate the supervised visits until my divorce becomes final. If Carla and James try to contact me again, unless it is strictly about our daughter, then they both go to jail. James has to pay me child support. Of course, he tried to protest it, but it wasn't happening. Lastly, after court, James said something that kind of broke my heart about our daughter. If he can't have primary custody, then he is going to petition to terminate his rights. He doesn't want to be tied to me anymore and is willing to let my daughter suffer for it. So my daughter just pretty much loses her father because he would rather break away from me and pretend that I don't exist. I have some additional information from Carla that she said to me afterwards. Apparently, she is infertile due to an illness she suffered from as a teenager. She wanted a baby so bad and to get me out of the picture so that they could play happy family with my daughter. I was stunned. She then asked me if I was happy for tearing their family apart. I had to look at her for a second. She tore my family apart. I wanted to slap her so badly. Because of her, my daughter is probably going to lose her father. I'm sad. That's all I have for you guys. My next update will probably when the divorce finally happens. Thank you for reading this. And then the OP posts an update about a week later, and let's get into it. This update is heavy. Court was on Friday, and I was waiting for the dust to settle before I posted 2 days ago. My soon-to-be ex-husband has been hospitalized. Carla called me this morning, crying despite the order. James tried to commit escorted this morning, and she found him just in time. He tried to OD on his prescriptions, and now he is in the hospital. The doctors don't know how long he'll be there, but I will keep my hopes up for a speedy recovery. Despite the literal hell he has put me through, he is still the father of my daughter. I'm not pressing charges this time against Carla because it was a dire emergency. James is stable, and they are transferring him to another facility for the foreseeable future. I feel almost sorry for her. I don't know when I will be able to update again. I have a lot to deal with and emergency care to plan for. Please keep me in your thoughts as I navigate this difficult situation. Thank you. And one of the top comments is, "Why did he commit S-word?" And the OP responds and says, "Bad manic episode. My husband is bipolar, and I guess everything got to him too much and he spiraled. Hard. He is alive, but hospitalized." And then the OP comes back with an update about 3 weeks later, titled, "Carla has been arrested." I didn't think I'd be back with an update, but it has been 2 weeks since soon-to-be ex-husband was hospitalized for a S-word attempt. Since we have put divorce proceedings on hold for a while, until he gets out of the hospital, I've been taking the steps to spend time with my daughter and my in-laws, who have been my rocks in this situation. Life has stabilized for me a bit. I'm still acclimating to my DID diagnosis. I've been out of it for a few days now, due to some heavy-duty painkillers, but I know some of you are here to see how this saga ends. On to the biggest part of the update. Carla has been arrested and is being charged with breaking a protective order, aggravated assault, and attempted kidnapping, plus a whole slew of other charges. Here is what happened. I was out and about in town yesterday, trying to get a few errands done. I was starting to get hungry and decided to get some food at my favorite spot. It was a small Italian restaurant that I used to go to with my husband before the divorce proceedings started. I ordered my food and sat down to wait for my order. As my food was being handed to me, I saw Carla storm in like she owned the place and decided to confront me. She was hysterical, and I couldn't make sense of what she was trying to say. She then started to punch and kick me. To make a long story short, Carla broke my nose and my arm, fractured my left eye socket, and punctured a lung. When she realized what she had done, she panicked and tried to take my stroller while I was fighting to stay conscious. Someone saw what she was trying to do and stopped her before she could escape. I woke up to the police in my room and my in-laws holding my daughter. The police filled me in on what happened, and now Carla is in jail awaiting a court hearing. Because of the nature of my injuries, police are taking the decision to press charges out of my hands. Not that I tried to drop the charges anyway. So yeah, this is where I am at. Sorry if it seems super lame. I will update again after Carla's court date in a few days. Much love, guys. And the top comments on this post read as follows. Someone says, "This is insane. I'm so sorry you're going through all of this, and that she got to hurt you in this way. But I'm so happy your baby girl is safe, and that now you can likely be free from her. I hope she goes to jail and never bothers you again. Please take the time to heal both physically and emotionally from all of this. Love on your daughter and on your in-laws, who thankfully see what's right and are on your side." And then the OP comes back 5 days later with another update titled, "Carla was denied bond." Carla is still sitting in jail. She is facing some serious prison time, and I'm so happy that I can put her behind me. I also got out of the hospital a few days ago. First of all, let me begin with a small update on soon-to-be ex-husband. He has been receptive to treatment and will be leaving the hospital next Monday. My mother-in-law has been keeping me up to date on his condition, and he is stable now. A lot of you were right. Carla took advantage of her manic episode and need for a stronger dosage of his medicine by convincing him to sleep with her. He has since broken up with her and begged his mother to tell me that he does want another chance to be my husband. That's why she attacked me the other day. She couldn't handle his rejection. To be clear, I'm not giving him another chance. He destroyed my trust by not only cheating on me, but by refusing his medicines for a while and threatening me and my daughter. I'm still going through the divorce, but I may go to counseling to review the custody arrangement and give him more supervised visitation. He's still her father after all. Also, I got a job recently. I was told I got the position the day before I was released from the hospital. I haven't read all of your messages of support, but the ones that I have read, thank you. Carla is still in jail with no chance to get out before the next hearing. Hopefully, she gets what is coming to her. Hubby is stabilizing and begging for another chance, and I am looking forward to starting my career. I will be updating again in about a week. Edit. I just read the comments and some of them are rather harsh about me saying I want to try and give him a little more supervised visits. Say what you want, but soon-to-be ex can go back and try to get the custody order reviewed when he gets out, as long as he is stable and undergoes mandated therapy. The judges will rule in his favor. The review of his custody arrangement is per my lawyer's advice. Otherwise, when he gets better, he can file to have it amended. It's just easier to be agreeable rather than fighting it out. I have no more energy to do so. Carla is still in jail, so my biggest threat is gone. She isn't getting out for some time. Not even her family's influence can help her. I'd rather agree to longer visits than risk having him gain even an ounce of unsupervised custody. At least this way, I know my in-laws will get her out of there if he is still dangerous. It'll also look better on me during this divorce process. And then the OP comes back with one final update, and let's get into it. Soon-to-be ex-husband is out of hospital. He is staying at his home, alone. He is so miserable now that he has lost everything. His mom and stepdad have cut him off for the most part, except during visits with our daughter. His mom told me that he is going to sign away his rights once I get married, if that is what I want. According to her, he wants to reconcile but knows that I'm not willing to do so. He wants his life back before this whole Carla debacle started. He isn't fighting custody at all either. He doesn't want any more visitation than he already has. He is willing to pay child support and alimony to speed along this divorce. He is cognizant of the damage he has done to our family. For context, my mother cheated on my father, and it broke up my family before I was old enough to even remember. Their divorce was final when I was only a year old and my mother abandoned me. I cannot stand cheaters. They destroy lives. James understands this too. Cheating is that hard line for me, so James knew he effed up. Right now, I have an appointment Friday for a discussion with my lawyer about the terms of our divorce and formalizing custody. James's parents are helping me with arrangements for my own apartment. Thank you, everyone. I won't update again until the divorce is final, which should be in 3 months at least. Goodbye for now. And that ended up being the OP's final post. But I hope that the OP and the OP's daughter are doing better now. MK Ultra. In the middle of the Cold War, the CIA set out to control the human mind. They didn't care about safety or ethics, only results. It became one of the most disturbing psychological programs in history, remembered today by a single codename, MK Ultra. It was a covert CIA umbrella program that pushed the boundaries of the human psyche, and though most documents were destroyed, a lot still exists through the public record. Enough to understand how terrifying this program was at its peak. To put it simply, MK Ultra was a program headed by the Technical Services Division, or TSD for short. It was the root of 149 other sub-projects, all of which were involved in researching drugs, interrogation methods, behavior modification, and incapacitation, all of which were tested on unaware human subjects. It was the world's first sophisticated truth serum. In their own words, MK Ultra was essentially created to control human behavior. It was authorized by the director of the CIA at the time, Mr. Allen W. Dulles. In 1953, the TSD was told to allocate 20% of their research and development budget solely to MKUltra. Millions went into this program, and even more was completely unaccounted for. They waived the usual procedure when it came to approving funding for projects like these, and everything was off the books. Only 2 individuals from the entire TSD knew everything, and almost everything they did know was entirely undocumented. There are just 2 individuals in TSD who have full substantive knowledge of the program, and most of that knowledge is unrecorded. Both are highly skilled, highly motivated, professionally competent individuals. Part of their competence lies in their command of intelligence tradecraft, in protecting the sensitive nature of the American intelligence capability to manipulate human behavior. They apply need-to-know doctrine to their professional associates and to their clerical assistants to a maximum degree. Confidence in their competence and discretion has been a vital feature of the management of MKUltra. Before MKUltra, the CIA began studying communist brainwashing techniques, funding huge research projects. They called it QK Hilltop. QK Hilltop was a cryptonym assigned in 1954 to a project to study Chinese communist brainwashing techniques and to develop interrogation techniques. Most of the early studies are believed to have been conducted by the Cornell University Medical School Hupan Ecology study programs. The effort was absorbed into the MKUltra program, and the QK Hilltop cryptonym became obsolete. The Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology, later the Human Ecology Fund, was an outgrowth of the QK Hilltop. MKUltra wasn't your run-of-the-mill testing program. A squeaky clean lab? Doctors and scientists in white lab coats with clipboards? No. Prior consent was obviously not obtained from any of the subjects. There was also, obviously, no medical pre-screening. In addition, the tests were conducted by individuals who were not qualified scientific observers. There were no medical personnel on hand either to administer the drugs or to observe their effects, and no follow-up was conducted on the test subjects. Operation Midnight Climax was a safe house program, where the CIA used apartments in huge cities such as San Francisco and New York, employing prostitutes to lure in targets. In short, the apartments used in this sub-project were nicknamed CIA brothels. These targets were dosed without their consent through a number of ways. Whether that was a literal needle, an aerosol agent, you name it, they've probably done it. And rather elaborate decorations were added, as I understand at least, to the one in San Francisco, in the bedroom, which are French can-can dancers, floral pictures, drapery, including installation of bedroom mirrors, 3 framed Toulouse-Lautrec posters with black silk mats, and a number of other red bedroom curtains and recording equipment, and then a series of documents which were provided to the committee, which indicate a wide proliferation of different cash for $100, generally in the $100 range over any period of time on the particular checks. Even the names are blocked out as to the person who is receiving it. Cash for undercover agents, operating expenses, drinks, entertainment while administrating, and then it is dashed out. What can you tell us that it might suggest to you about what techniques were being used by the agency in terms of reaching that sort of broad-based group of Americans that are being evidently enticed for testing in terms of drugs and others? Do you draw any kind of conclusion about what might have been going on out there in these safe houses? They'd use 2-way mirrors to watch the effects that MKUltra had on subjects, with recording devices in the rooms. MKUltra testing branched out into Montreal, Canada, under Sub-Project 68, where they began testing something called psychic driving. Funds were diverted through the Society for the Investigations of Human Ecology, Inc., with barely any accounting for funds at all. The fund-approved memo mentioned 5 different drugs to be used on human subjects, either on their own or in a combination: artane, anectine, bulbocapnine, curare, and the classic LSD. The major red flags in these drugs are anectine, bulbocapnine, curare, and of course LSD. All those drugs, except LSD, are used to induce short-term paralysis. LSD, however, is one of the most notorious drugs out there. Being one of the most potent hallucinogens, was used to literally shape the reality of whoever they used it on. Using this combination of substances, Subproject 68 was trying to literally shift the reality of each subject that MK Ultra was used on, hence the term psychic driving. But one question stays prevalent. How and why did MK Ultra even come to be? In 1949, once the CIA received intelligence of communist brainwashing of prisoners of war, the CIA approved the Blue Bird program. And a year later, it approved Artichoke, which ended up superseding it. Artichoke was the early stages of understanding how to use drugs and hypnosis for interrogation. On April 10, 1953, director Alan Dulles gave a speech at the National Alumni Conference of Princeton University. The speech was titled Brain Warfare, announcing how Cold War tensions were rising and that the battle had shifted from a Cold War to brain warfare. 2 days later, on April 13, 1953, MK Ultra was authorized. Almost nothing was revealed to the public about this, and over time, 149 subprojects took place. Then finally, the first recorded death. It is crucial, as several files pertaining to MK Ultra were destroyed, and record keeping was notoriously lackluster, intentionally done so. The most tragic result of the testing of LSD by the CIA was the death of Dr. Frank Olson, a civilian employee of the Army who died on November 27, 1953. His death followed his participation in a CIA experiment with LSD. As part of this experiment, Olson unwittingly received approximately 70 micrograms of LSD in a glass of Cointreau he drank on November 19, 1953. The drug had been placed in the bottle by a CIA officer, Dr. Robert Lashbrook. As part of an experiment he and Dr. Sidney Gottlieb performed at a meeting of Army and CIA scientists. Shortly after this experiment, Olson exhibited symptoms of paranoia and schizophrenia. Accompanied by Dr. Lashbrook, Olson sought psychiatric assistance in New York City from a physician, Dr. Harold Abstrom, whose research on LSD had been funded indirectly by the CIA. While in New York for treatment, Olson fell to his death from a 10th-story window in the Statler Hotel. The death brought in safeguards, but testing did not slow down in the slightest, and if anything, it only started ramping up. Operation Midnight Climax began just months after Dr. Olson's death. This way, the entire environment was under the CIA's control. Not long after, Subproject 68 began, where the first records of specific drugs were being noted. MK Ultra ran unchecked until 1963, where the CIA Inspector General issued a top-secret report on MK Ultra. The report was entirely internal, yet posed questions on the unwitting drug tests and pushed for ethical constraints on research. The concepts involved in manipulating human behavior are found by many people, both within and outside the agency, to be distasteful and unethical. The principal conclusions of the inspection are that the structure and operation controls over this activity need strengthening. Improvements are needed in the administration of the research projects, and some of the testing of substances under simulated operational conditions was judged to involve excessive risk to the agency. Another report emphasized the extreme expenditure of the MK Ultra program. Funding of MK Ultra was eventually stabilized at 20% of TDS's annual research and developmental budget. It has fallen in the neighborhood of redacted per year over the 10-year history of the program. The report finally reveals just how far the CIA went with MK Ultra. Over the 10-year life of the program, many additional avenues to the control of human behavior have been designated by the TSD management as appropriate to investigation under the MK Ultra Charter, including radiation, electroshock, various fields of psychology, psychiatry, sociology, and anthropology, graphology, harassment, substances, and paramilitary devices and materials. MK Ultra eventually evolved into MK Search after this report from the Inspector General. MK Search was the name given to the continuation of the MK Ultra program. Funding commenced in FY 1966 and ended in FY 1972. Its purpose was to develop, test, and evaluate capabilities in the covert use of biological, chemical, and radioactive material systems and techniques for producing predictable human behavioral and/or psychological changes in support of highly sensitive operational requirements. The experiments continued until around a year or two later when the Midnight Climax safe houses were closed. Although experimentation had concluded, the program kept going for 6 more years, until 1972, when it was finally closed. This is when the CIA realized how far they'd gone. In January 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of MKUltra files and documents. Perhaps most disturbing of all was the fact that the extent of experimentation on human subjects was unknown. The records of all these activities were destroyed in January 1973 at the instruction of then CIA Director Richard Helms. In spite of persistent inquiries by both of the Health Subcommittee and the Intelligence Committee, no additional records or information were forthcoming, and no single individual could be found who remembered the details. Not the director of the CIA, who ordered the documents destroyed, not the official responsible for the program, nor any of his associates. The MKUltra program was summed up in one paragraph by Senator Kennedy. The Central Intelligence Agency drugged American citizens without their knowledge or consent. It used university facilities and personnel without their knowledge. It funded leading researchers, often without their knowledge. 2 years later, the Rockefeller Commission and the Church Committee investigate the CIA and the MKUltra program, where for the first time in 25 years, it becomes public knowledge. President Ford apologizes to the family of Dr. Olson for his death and the CIA direct involvement. On February 18, 1976, President Ford finally signed Executive Order 11905. Intelligence agencies shall not engage in experimentation with drugs on human subjects except with the informed consent, in writing and witnessed by a disinterested third party, of each such human subject and in accordance with the guidelines issued by the National Commission for the Protection of Human Subjects for Biomedical and Behavioral Research. Eventually, after a Freedom of Information Act request was hammered through by a member of the public, the CIA ended up finding over 7 boxes worth of financial MKUltra records. Approximately 20,000 pages escaped the destruction order by Director Helms. Another FOIA request was placed, questioning the redaction of several statements within MKUltra files, which led to a court case being filed. CIA v. Sims held that disclosure of certain parts within these files was justified on the grounds that private contractors and scientists worked on the program and redaction was necessary to protect their identities. In 1992, the Canadian government announced compensation for victims of the Montreal experiments, and finally, MKUltra came to a close. What's commonly misunderstood is that the CIA did in fact invent reliable mind control, when this was far from the truth. Results were all over the place and couldn't be trusted. It's also said that people were programmed by the CIA to carry out assassinations when that was fundamentally impossible. Although the mind control program had seen some scattered results, that's all they were: scattered. To this day, it's unclear just how much we don't know about MKUltra. With the amount of data in all the published documents, this is barely scratching the surface of just how bad MKUltra was. MKUltra was nothing more than a messy attempt to win the Cold War through the most unethical means possible, and to create an entirely new subset of warfare, through mental warfare. MKUltra is a huge operation that had hundreds of subprojects running simultaneously. Country Road. Few weeks ago, I was driving in the middle of nowhere, heading to one of my friends. My wife was sleeping next to me, while my teenage daughters were watching a movie in the back. Next to them, my toddler was playing with his toys. It was around 1 a.m. and I was nervous as the drive there seemed to last forever. The dirt roads with no lights gave me chills, as all I could see around were only fields. The road had many holes and I was trying to avoid them as much as I could. I was very focused on that when I saw in front of my car a luggage. It was in the middle of the road, on my side. On the other side, a car was parked, facing us. The car was completely in the dark as there were no lights inside or outside of it. I did not want to drive over the luggage, so my first instinct was to go out and move it. I was lucky to have my wife with me. She grabbed my hand and indicated me something on the right. One person was in the field, looking at something on his phone, reason for which my wife saw him in the first place. I turned my car around and was ready to leave this road, where 2 people jumped out in front of us from the field. There was no space on the road, so I couldn't go without harming them. 2 people were in front of my car, 1 luggage, a car, and the person checking their phone in the field were behind us. I did not know what to do, so I did the only thing that I thought of. I just turned around again, facing the luggage, and just drove over it, Fortunately, there was nothing inside it to damage my car, so we got out of the situation completely unharmed. We arrived at my friend's house and everything was perfect and we had a great time there. However, I still have chills when thinking about this incident, so people from the field, let's not meet again.